Hi everyone, this is just a very quick video going through some of the key language techniques needed to help boost your English skills with both GCSE and Functional Skills English. We're going to look at some of the key techniques and also we're going to go through a few of the examples as well. So the first thing I want you to do is have a look at this acronym. Now this acronym is going to be extremely important whenever you're doing any form of English writing or even English reading. If you're not sure what we mean by an acronym, this is a word comprised of letters that stand for something else. So for example, we have our acronym known as DeForest. Each one of these letters will stand for a bigger technique that will apply to your writing in English. So it may be that you've heard of this before. What I'd like you to do is look at the clues below and see if you can work out what they might be referring to. So the first one says then, a statement that is someone's viewpoint but not necessarily a fact. The second one is stating something more than once to emphasize its importance. And the third one is speaking directly to the audience to make a personal connection. Now if you want to pause the video here and go through it at your own time, try and figure out what the clues might be referring to, please feel free to do so. We're now going to jump ahead and go through them in more detail. Class feedback. Check your answers against the correct ones. So again, if you're not too sure what we mean when we talk about our DeForest techniques, this is what each of the letters within the acronym stands for. So the first one is direct address, then we have alliteration, facts, opinion, rhetorical question, repetition, emotive language, statistics, and a triplet. Now if you're not too sure what any of these means, don't worry, we're going to go through each one of these in detail now. We're also going to have a look at an example for each one as well. Before we move on, it's important to think if you are studying English at the moment, be it GCSE or functional skills, can you define any of these already? It might also be that if you think about some of these, that these are some of the techniques that we actually use in everyday life. So have a look down the list very quickly and think, are there any of these that you already use from day to day? Look at the definitions and examples for each of the key techniques. So we're going to start off with our first one then, which is the D in our acronym. So we're going to look at direct address. So the definition of this is speaking directly to the audience to make a personal connection. An example would be, you should always make time to revise for your exams. And if you're not too sure where the direct address is there, it's in this word you. Now this is a really effective technique because it's speaking directly to the audience. Next we're going to move on to our second letter in our DeForest acronym, which is alliteration. A definition of this is the same letter occurring at the start of a word and another word in close conjunction or proximity to each other. So an example of this would be, revising shouldn't be hard and horrible, it should be fascinating and fun. So again, alliteration then is basically just repeating the same letter 2 or more times, and you can see that we've done that in words like hard and horrible, but also in fascinating and in fun. Next we're going to move on to our third letter within our DeForest techniques, which is facts. So the definition of a fact then is something that is true and factual. An example of this is, it is a fact that English can be difficult for a lot of people. Next we're going to move on to opinion. Now this actually works hand in hand with a fact. It's almost the opposite of a fact really. Now the definition of this is something that is a personal view or idea. An example of this would be, in my opinion, revising is easier for you if you use YouTube. Next, we have rhetorical questions. Now this is probably one of the most fundamental techniques to use, especially if you're writing a speech or something like that. Now a rhetorical question is a question that doesn't actually require a verbal response. So even though you're asking a question, you're not going to get someone voicing their opinion back at you. Now the reason why we use this is because it helps people to actually engage with what you're trying to communicate, especially if it's in a speech or in an article or something like that. An example of this would be, who doesn't hate revising for exams? Now we're not going to be expecting an answer for this statement. It's a very general statement that can kind of help to get the audience on side, because if we think about it, most people really would say that they hate revising for exams. Next, we're going to move on to our next R, which is repetition. So this is when a word or phrase is said 2 or more times. So if you're doing a piece of writing and you've got a real strong message that you want to convey to your audience, it's worthwhile repeating that same phrase 2 or more times so that it sticks in their head. An example of this is, remember to revise, remember to revise. So just repeating that phrase more than once makes it more likely that it's going to stay in the reader's head. Next we have emotive language. Now this is often quite a difficult one for a lot of people to grasp because it isn't simply about love or hate as the picture may suggest. In fact, the definition is words that get an emotional reaction. So instead of actually thinking about love and hate, these are words that get an emotional reaction in relation to those kind of two ideas. So an example would be, learners often stress and worry about revising for their exams. So the words there that would class as emotive are words like stress and worry because they're emotionally charged words. We know that if people are feeling stressed or if they're worrying about something in an emotive level, that is quite a negative thing, and therefore that would class as emotive language. Next we have statistics. So statistics is one of the very few times that we ever mention maths within an English lesson. So this is where we use numerical data to support a point that's being made. An example of this would be something like 90% of people struggle to revise. And finally, we've moved on to the T in our De Forest technique, which is a triplet or a group of 3. So the definition of this is 3 words or phrases that link to one idea. An example would be, revising is stressful, time-consuming, and drives some people crazy. Now the reason why this is really effective if you're thinking about persuasive writing, the simple reason is because if you're going to state one reason why something is effective, it's going to be okay, there's going to be some argument behind that, but if you can give me 3 points why something is important or effective, then therefore your point is going to be that much stronger because you've got 3 ideas as opposed to one idea carrying it forward. In terms of our next lesson, we're going to be going over the following things. So we're going to recall the acronym needed for functional skills and English in general, understand the techniques that are both in functional skills and GCSE English, and apply your understanding to answer some comprehension questions. Now if you need any additional support, new videos will be added every single week. Alternatively, you can leave us a comment below or visit our partner channel, Bookworm Teaching, for more lessons and guidance on all things English. We are also rolling out some weekly tips and advice, so do check that out. They come out every Friday. Some of the times it's just covering general things, and if there's anything specific that you do want to cover that you've got a question about or you're unsure about, then please do let us know. Thanks for listening guys, and all the best for your work and revision in the future. Bye bye.